Hi, I'm Captain Shakil Ahmed, and I'm a part of DLC's Risk and Crisis Management Committee, Delhi chapter. So a little bit about me. I'm an Indian Army veteran. I'm a risk, resilience, and brand assurance leader with over 26 years of experience. Currently, I'm the Senior Vice President with an Indian gaming unicorn, and I take care of organizational resilience, real estate, and workplace services. I've been fortunate enough to work in these diverse leadership roles, to understand the gamut of risk management and brand assurance, reputation management, and operational risks across diverse sectors of industries, which comprise of basically, 3 or 4 elements that I'm going to talk about, and then I'm going to come to the topic of the day. Number 1 is enterprise risk management. Number 2, law enforcement management and support, business continuity, crisis management and emergency response, enterprise risk management, emergency response, crisis management and business continuity, real estate and workplace services, and a gamut of other things that actually are paramount for protecting the business of the day. Coming to the topic of the day, I have chosen risk management for new age organizations, enterprise risk management, law enforcement response and support, brand assurance and anti-counterfeiting, real estate and workplace services, emergency response, crisis management and business continuity, corporate affairs and public policy, government affairs and regulatory affairs. I've been fortunate enough to be a part of multiple leadership roles in companies that have all these aspects covered, that gave me great experience to be the professional that I am today. We live in a VUCA world. VUCA is a very commonly used term for security and risk professionals, which is V for volatile, U for uncertainty, C for complexity, and A for ambiguity. With the advent of COVID and the way we had the lockdowns, every single day was a crisis and a disaster for corporates. And to manage all this, you needed a very strong risk management setup. With this, I come to the topic of the day, which is risk management for new age organizations. So in 2019, I joined the startup world. I was approached by a unicorn startup to lead their risk management program. And since then, I've been a part of 3 multi-locational, multicultural, diverse industries. And there I have embedded risk and resilience programs, security and risk, law enforcement, business continuity. And it has been a great ride since then. So before coming to the topic per se, let's have some statistics about the startup world. 90% of the startups across the world fail. 10% fail in the first year itself. 42% fail because of misreading the market. 29% fail because of lack of funding, and 70% fail between 2 to 5 years. And this brings us to the very alarming question of risk management itself. The statistics show us that risk management is an extremely important factor in the startup world. So let me come to how startups work, or this is my personal view on what I've seen, what I've experienced. In the beginning, startups are all for speed, acceleration, no rules, maybe no policies, and that's how they grow. So it's a growth versus compliance battle, which most of the startups fight. The second step is when they grow in little numbers, they feel that they need some policies, some processes. The processes and policies keep on coming piecemeal. So let's have a look at how startups work. Basically, it's a need for speed, and people think that growth is only possible when there are no policies, no roadblock, and it's a battle between growth and compliance. And startups are mostly in the gray zone, and that's where the growth is. There are mostly very few regulations. Therefore, it has got very dynamic risks. Once the startup grows to a size and the startup is growing, the authorities actually lack knowledge about the startup, the ways of working of the startup, and they are actually sluggish. This gives the startup some growth, but at the same time, risks that come from the authorities, because in the absence of regulation, in the absence of policy, authorities tend to come in heavy-handed. Therefore, risk management as a function is extremely important to manage and mitigate those risks. After some time, when the startup grows and they actually become big, they have grown in numbers of FTEs, they start putting the processes, the protocols piecemeal. In the event of a serious risk or a business disruption, that's when these startups wake up and they start looking for somebody like me or maybe risk practitioners to come in and put in the framework. So the hiring and the resourcing of the risk management framework or the vertical, as you may say, needs deliberation. This needs real thought and commitment from the founders and the entrepreneurs. They need to have budgets, resources lined up for this function, and they should be serious about it. In my view, startups have a way of doing things. They go out of the box. They don't conform to legacy norms, legacy protocols, or tried and tested methods. They want to do new things. And given the profile of entrepreneurs, mostly young people, who may or may not have a lot of corporate experience, a lot of diverse industry experience to understand this entire gamut of risk management, they tend to basically work in a certain manner. And once the risk management professional comes in, a lot of change management needs to take place, and it has to be driven from the top. It's a top-down approach. So what should be the ideal situation here? Let's understand the entrepreneur. An entrepreneur is a risk taker by nature, and therefore the entrepreneur has less regard for rules, or maybe they don't have the time for getting into the risk management because they need to grow their business, and therefore the risk management function mostly is neglected. This is often a good thing. Otherwise, if the entrepreneur focuses more on the risks, he would not be able to grow his business. So coming back to what should be the ideal situation, possibly the entrepreneurs should look at risk management early. They should start the discussion around risk management, have bits and pieces of risk management elements come into their business. At a certain opportune time, a seasoned professional, a risk management professional should be hired, where the risk manager identifies the risks. And this is done with the entire organization, all the leaders in place. And going back to change management, people, I said, have a way of doing things. And when people come in as risk managers, people think that they're getting obstructed. So an extremely important trait of the risk manager has to be an amicable leader who can take the team along and make them understand the needs and the requirement of risk management for the company. The risk manager establishes the context. He identifies the risks, measures the risks, prioritizes the risks, and then mitigates the risk, and then monitors the risks. And once you have done all this for all the business functions, corporate functions, and you have established the committees that are required at the board level, at the senior management level, at the operational levels. So instead of bringing the risks to zero, the risk management process normally happens in this following manner. The risk manager establishes the context for the entire organization, gets the leadership buy-in, and then identification of risks happen with all the business functions and the corporate functions. Thereafter, the prioritization of risks take place, the risks are analyzed, and after that mitigation happens, and then the risks are monitored. So coming back to the risk management process, this is basically the risk manager doing the typical risk management. These are the following steps. He establishes the context. He takes the entire organization through the risk management process, gets the management buy-in. For all the business functions and corporate functions, the risks are identified, they are prioritized, they're analyzed, they are treated, and then the risks are monitored. And this happens on a periodic basis. Now, once we have done this exercise, it's easy that you have these 4 aspects that you need to take to the next level. you either avoid the risks, you mitigate the risks, you accept the risks, or you transfer the risks. These are the 4 things that you can do. As I said, for the risk management professional that one must have to deal with dynamic risks in this new age organizations. Every day is a crisis, every day is an emergency, as COVID showed us. We needed to understand that all the traditional methods of business continuity, crisis management, and emergency response failed. There was nothing, there was no SOP or protocol that actually took care of COVID. And therefore, the new age security professional, new age risk management professional has to have certain traits that would deal with emergencies and crisis and business continuity on a daily basis as the business continues. There is no recovery time objective, there's no recovery point objective. It is all in continuation. While you are doing business as usual, the emergency response, the crisis management, and the business continuity functions are engaged. And the risk manager has a huge responsibility on his or her shoulders. So the traits, one has to have vision, at least to foresee what is going to happen. And as we discussed the VUCA world, you may not be able to see more than next 2 or 3 days in certain situations. So one has to have a clear vision of what the situation would look like and has to plan beforehand to deal with the same. Or be smart enough to use the existing resources and deal with the situation on the ground. Understanding is an important trait for a leader to have. He or she must understand the interconnections between the various departments, between external agencies, between support functions, between vendors, and must be able to think strategically, channelize anxiety into positive energy, and deal with the situation. Another trait that one must have is clarity. One must be able to take judicious decisions in the face of absolute chaos, and thereafter one must be able to decide and take decisions with as less information as possible. So information processing and analyzing of situations, that trait is extremely important. One must also be adaptable. One must be adjusting to the situation as the situation changes. So flexibility is a great trait to have. I would like to add some more. Empathy. One must be empathetic. Unless you are empathetic and you understand things by putting yourself in the other person's shoe, or what is going to happen and what is the impact, you won't be able to take decisions clearly. A successful entrepreneur understands these subtleties and judiciously knows which risks to pick and which ones to avoid. Early adoption of the risk management function and roping in a professional to build that function helps the startups thrive. With this, I hope I have been able to throw some light on risk management in new age organizations. So DLC as a concept has been very interesting. I've been visiting the website, I've been watching the videos of various other leaders who have come from all different walks of life, and there's so much knowledge that is being shared out there. I think it's a fantastic initiative and a great opportunity for everyone who is on this particular forum or who wants to be a particular, join a particular forum or a committee. So thank you, DLC. It's a great initiative. And I would like to thank Mr. Jimmy Mistry for building this across the globe. Thank you.